Hello, I'm Nancy Reynolds, Stampin' with Nutsy, and I want to thank the super awesome stamper Shirley Merker for inviting me to join her in the suite of the month. In April, we have Dandy Garden and the Dragonfly Wishes, and it was all a suite in the January to June mini catalog, and this is the Dandy Garden Suite Collection. I'm using the bundle. No, I'm not. I'm just using the stamp set from Dragonfly Garden. We're going to use the flower stamp, the sentiment, may good things grow all year long, and for a two friend, plus the little butterflies. So we will be, or little dragonflies, I suppose they really are. That's what we're going to use for our first card. I was having fun with this. Got out my blending brushes that Stampin' Up sells. We've got Calypso Coral ink and Bumblebee ink. And I thought it would be fun to make our own DSP and do a very simple stamping card. Just stamp, inks, and paper. Because I thought it turned out pretty well. And I think it's a pretty card that's great for beginners. So if you know someone just starting out, you could help them make this. So let's go ahead and get started. The supplies are minimal. You're going to need, and I used thick Whisper white cardstock for my base. It is half of a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. I scored it at 4 1/4. I cut it in 5 1/2, and then I fold it on the score side with the little mountain fold in. This is a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of paper. It's the basic white cardstock. Did I say Whisper White before? I'm so sorry. And then we need an envelope. This is the medium basic white envelope. So let's get started. We are going to start with our background. So there's my Bumblebee ink. Here's my Calypso Coral ink. What you want to do is make sure your surface, I am going to move this out of the way because I don't need to get more ink on it. Your surface is covered, so your table's protected. Because this is a little messy, you're going to start, as you can see, it's a little messy. You're going to start off your cardstock, and I chose to start with the Calypso Coral, the darker color, because I'm going to run that Bumblebee ink over the top of it. So one of the things to get the effect I wanted is you start out and then just swirl color on. And I want these areas with no ink on them because that is going to be filled up with our Bumblebee. Let's get some ink on there. Again, start off your cardstock and then work it in. The Calypso Coral color still comes through, and the Bumblebee covers all the white. There we are. We actually, because the second card uses this very same technique, we could have done 2 at one time and been done. But I wanted to get on to the stamping. Now my Misty Moonlight has a touch of something on it. I think that's a little ribbon sliver. So I'm going to take that off and put it in the garbage because I don't want it messing up our stamping. I'm taking the large flower stamp, which I have mounted on this block, which is an L or an I. I never can tell for sure. And I'm going to ink up my stamp, tap, 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 tap. And then I am going to start on one side. Maybe I'll start in the middle. And I'm going to do it a little bit lower so I don't have, so some of it's stamped off. And then I'm going to do another one taller to the left and another one taller to the right. And there we are. We are almost done with our card. While we've got this stamp out though, let's take our envelope and stamp our envelope. because our card should be pretty on the outside, on the front, and on the inside. So we're going to do all of those layers just with stamp inks and paper. I'm going to line him up on the corner, the edge here. Isn't that pretty? Now that is Happy Mail. When you see that come in the mail, it is definitely Happy Mail. And so I'm going to make a little spray of flowers on the back. And I'm going to stamp off and use second generation ink for the second one, so it looks like these flowers are hiding behind on each side. Our envelope is done. Set it aside. Our background, our layer is almost done. Let's set this over here. I need the sentiment. And I want to use Make Good Things Grow all year long. And I'm going to use the Misty Moonlight ink. Tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to fill up this space with no flowers in it with our sentiment. There we are. On the inside of the card, because we want it to be pretty, I'm going to grab my Bumblebee ink. These are either butterfly stamps or they're dragonflies. To me, they look like butterflies. I'm going to do second generation ink up here towards the middle because I'm going to stamp the sentiment over it. And I want it light. And then if you wanted to, you could do, you know, a little something down here. You could do just a couple up there for interest. And my sentiment for the inside, I'm using a smaller sentiment, which means I'm going to have to write more. For a true friend. And it's going right over the top of those little flying butterflies or dragonflies, whatever they are. Now I'm going to close these ink pads up because I can make a huge mess with ink pads. It is not pretty what I can do with ink pads. Yeah, hands look okay. We can handle the card again. That's the scary thing about doing white cards, is it's very easy to get ink on them. Take the top off. This is our seal, Stampin' Seal. There's a trick to using it. Tip it up when you lift it off so that the adhesive breaks up in this area. And then it'll be ready to go for your next one. Now, a little around each side. I am probably a little generous with that, maybe one in the middle. You probably don't need that much, but I do like things well attached. Let's see, that looks about right. We will put this on. And our first card is finished. This is a simple Stampin' card. Ink, paper, and stamps. So I think that was a nice way to illustrate that particular card. Our second card, I wanted to do a little differently. As I said, it's got the same background, and your backgrounds, no two are going to be alike, which is really fun. I went ahead and I did the background, and then I ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine with the 3D border brick and mortar. Because the bricks go sideways on this, you line up your edge with the line. That's one thing about bricks. They really do need to be straight. So I appreciate that Stampin'Up put a line to help me line things up. Remember, it's very important that when you put these through your machine that you put the hinge through first, because it's the hinges that break on this if it gets too much torque going through the machine. So we've got this done. It is all ready to go. I also did the die cutting. put it in a little salt cellar so it would all stay together. This is important. And I thought I would build the front of my card partly. I cut a stem. So the other cardstock you need, I should show you that first. You're going to need scraps of Calypso Coral, Old Olive, and Mossy Meadow. You don't need a lot, just a little bit of each. And then I'm going to start by putting my stem on. And for that, I'm going to use my Tombow glue. And I just want the tiniest amount in a couple different spots. I mean, I want it to stay on, and it doesn't take a lot, but I don't want it to gush out because that would be messy. One other thing to help with the mess is our little silicone sheet that's for sale in the catalog. If you're gluing, it is a must. Because if you get glue on it, it doesn't stick. You can clean it off really well and easily. Then I want to build up my flower, and I cut. So when the set I'm using, I should show you that first. For this one, I am using the Garden Wishes, and I'm using the dies that go with it. Let's see. Here we are. The Garden Wishes, and the dies are the Dandy Wishes dies. And these are a bundle, and so you can save 10%. I am doing more dies on this one than I am stamping. What I did was, for the stem, I took the flower and I just cut the stem out of Mossy Meadow. And then I cut the flower plus the other 3 flowers out of Calypso Coral. I used Mossy Meadow for the leaves, and for the grass I used Old Olive. And then it's just building them up. So what I did was I took the flowers, all 4 of them, and I used the hammered metal embossing folder so that they have texture. Hopefully you can see the texture underneath all the sparkle. And then I decided it needed a bit something more. The first card I made, I decided that after I had put it all together. And it's a lot easier to put the Wink of Stella on them. And Wink of Stella is our glitter pen. It is my go-to. I always have one out. And then I have one sitting in reserve because they run out, you know, the glitter does run out. A dollop of glue for the first one. And did you notice that I lifted the petals, the end petals up just a little bit? The second size is going to go on, because it's going on the Wink of Stella, I wanted to make sure that it stuck, so I brought out my glue dots. So I will just take this to my glue dot, pick it off, offset the petal just a little, and stick it on. There we are. Here's the third one. I do like these with that little bit of texture on them. I hope you do too. Okay, here we go. A glue dot, again, a little offset. And then the littlest one, I have not Wink of Stella'd it. So I'm going to the embossed side, and the others, it didn't matter if I didn't get the center covered really well, but this does. A little Wink of Stella everywhere. I hope you can see the sparkle in the video. It's hard to photograph sparkle. I'll put a glue dot on it, pick it up with the glue dot. Give it a little bit of dimension by folding my petals, just a little bit. I know that in the mail these are going to be flattened, And here we are. There is our flower. I just took a little Tombow and put it on my leaves. Let's see. I have a friend of Sandra's too, or Sandra's her name, Shirley's friend too, who is just a whiz at using tweezers. My goal is to learn to use them as well as she does, because she would not be getting glue and sticky things on her fingers right now. So here is, I did even buy tweezers. That was the first step. But obviously I'm using fingers instead of tweezers. So here are our leaves, and then I want to do the grass. This particular die embosses onto the grass, just little blades. And so as much as I would like to have a couple of them going different directions, that is not going to be able to happen. So here's one. And a little glue there. I am specifically not putting glue on the blades because I want them loose for the texture and dimension. Here are the little ones. Too large, too small. And I think this one is going to go on this side, because I didn't leave us a lot of room over here. Like I did on this card, I did a little bit over. There we are. How is that looking? So what I want to do is I want to mount that onto a layer of Calypso coral. Now this is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So I went an 1/8 inch larger on each side. So it'll be a very narrow border. And often with embossed pieces, it's nice to use glue to get that really good adhesion. So here we are. It also lets you move it around just a little bit if you need to. We have this. I've got my card base again. It's that thick basic white. It was an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet. So it was cut in half, scored at 4 1/4, cut at 5 1/2. So here we are. And I am also going to use glue to adhere this. And I'm going to give, this is just popping up a little more, moving this out of the way, popping up a little more than I would like. So let's give it a little burnish. I like the thick for a card base because it stands up better. I think that's it. Here we are. For the sentiment on the front, I need a piece of Whisper White. I think it's actually, oh, this one will do. And I'm going to do Thank You for Your Kindness in Calypso Coral. So here we are, tap, tap, tap. Make sure that's pretty straight. Yes, it is. Although I'm going to cut it out with a punch, so I guess it really doesn't matter that much if it's straight. Closing this up for just a moment, even though we're going to use it again. Our punches are wonderful. This is the Tailored Tag Punch. This is one of my favorites, and I am so glad it's continuing. I use it for lots of different things, and sentiments are one. So I'm just going to center the Thank You for Your Kindness, or close to center it. Punch it out. And then I've done a couple of these. I did the backing in Mossy Meadow on this one. I did it in, let's see, Old Olive for this one, and I think I like the Mossy Meadow best. So let's go with Mossy Meadow. I'm going to take my snips and I'm going to cut right down the middle because I want something, it's exactly the same size as my thank you, but I want a border to make it stand out and pop on the card. So I am going to move this one that's done over here. Bring in my silicone mat. Bring out my Tombow. Put a little bit on the edge. I keep my Tombow upside down in a holder. I think that looks pretty good. I put a little too much Tombow on, but that's okay because I can wipe it off on my silicone mat. Aw. I got a little bit of ink on my white here. I'll use a sand eraser when we're done and work on that and get that off. A little Tombow here. And we'll line this one up. See, the nice thing about Tombow is you can move it around. Maybe I'll give that a little more edge. I'm going to rub off the excess glue. Remember in school when you played with Elmer's glue and you got it on your fingers and you just rubbed it off? You can do that with Tombow. I'm going to move the silicone sheet out of the way because the next thing I want to do is attach my little piece of ribbon. And with that, I'm again going to use glue dots. I'm going to put one on one side, one in the middle. I just don't like these to go anywhere. And one on the other edge. And I'm just going to lay this across my card, moderately straight. With dimensionals, I will attach my sentiment, and because it's going across a ribbon, I'm going to make sure I have it so that it'll straddle the ribbon or get some of the dimensional on the card base just for better adhesion. Now, as you know, those little backs get everywhere, so I try to put them right in the garbage. Here is our sentiment. Our front is almost done, but we still have the inside to do. So we're going to mount that. We need a layer of Calypso Coral, the card base that goes over it. I'm going to do much the same that I did with the other stamp set, the other card, as I'm going to play with the, I'm going to call them butterflies because to me they look more like butterflies than dragonflies. So I'm going to do this little swarm of butterflies, stamp off. I'm going to put this right here, the upper middle. And then I'm going to use full-on ink and do a couple more. My goodness. There we are. I do need to do one little quick wash on the chamois. It just cleans them with water. It's really great. Takes all the ink off. And then I'm going to open up my Calypso Coral and stamp the sentiment that was on the front of our other card. This is, again, may good things grow all year long. We'll put that right over our butterflies. Then we will take our pad and close it. The seal on 3 sides. And a dab in the middle. We line it up. The nice thing with the cards, only 1/8 of an inch difference, that if it lines up on 3 sides, it was going to line up automatically on the 4th side. It's always a good thing. And I have one more technique I want to show you. It's the marker or the ink to the stamp. Let's put this on. Okay, there we are. We still need to embellish it, but I want to work on the envelope first. Here's our stamp that we're going to use. I'm going to use 2 markers. Now these are the Stampin' Up markers. This does not work with blends. Blends dry too fast. They're a different consistency. They're alcohol. But let's see, I want to use the brush end. There's a writing end or a pen end and a brush end. You can even put them up there, the caps up so you don't lose them. And you take and you color right on your stamp. And this way you can get a couple of different colors on your stamp. Normally I would close that, but we're going to do this a few times. So let's do Mossy Meadow. So Calypso Coral is on the flower. Mossy Meadow's on the leaf. I'm going to take my stamp over to the side just a little bit. It's kind of going off. Stamp it on. Isn't that cute? I could have gone up a little bit further with the green. I'm sometimes afraid of contaminating colors. With this one, you really don't need to do as much on the green, on the leaf and the... Let's see, let's take that up a little further. Just color the top because I don't think much is going on that's green. Put 1 flower on. And then I'm not going to stamp these off like I did with the other. There isn't as much. If you find that it's taking you longer between putting on the color and when you're stamping, what you do is you huff on it. I'm being pretty quick, but if it starts to dry up, then you just breathe on it. And that moistens it with your breath. So here we have our 2nd flower, and we'll do a 3rd. It'll look like a little bouquet. Let's see, what you're doing here is you're making the person that you send the card to happy. That's why it's called Happy Mail. But you're also, everyone who touches it is going to enjoy your stamping and your coloring and how pretty it is. We'll just make sure. And here's number 3. And there is our envelope. Now, a couple little embellishments. Oh, let's put the lids back on. We don't want them to dry up. I have the opal rounds, which I thought were really cute. There's a little sparkly, there's different colors in them. And I think I'm going to put a medium one. I'm using my Take Your Pick tool. A medium one right there. And I think I'll put a smaller one, a small one over in here. And another small one. I have a little dog hair on there. Let me get that off. Up here. And there is our 2nd card. with the brushed background. I hope you've enjoyed it. There we are. Again, May to June mini catalog. This is the Dandy Garden Suite because I just had to have it all. It comes with lovely DSP, and I think you'll enjoy using it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I want you to have fun stamping. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining me.